Welcome back to the deep dive. So, I want you to imagine something. You are standing at the edge of a cliff.
Okay.
You look down, and it's a long, long way to the bottom. Now, normally, your survival instinct kicks in, right? You back away.
Of course, you grab a rail.
Exactly. But today, we're looking at a moment in history where the collective intelligence of the world, I mean, the smartest bankers, the shrewdest politicians, the average person on the street, they looked at that cliff, and they seemingly decided to jump.
Holding hands, with a smile on their faces. It's a dramatic image, but honestly, when you look at the psychology of 1929, it is not far from the truth.
We are, of course, talking about the Great Crash, but I want to be really clear right off the bat.
Yeah.
This isn't just a history lesson.
Yeah.
We're unpacking a set of notes titled Blind Money and the Collective Trance of 1929. And the whole premise here is a bit provocative. It argues that market crashes, they don't begin with numbers.
Right. They don't begin with economics. They begin with a belief system, with something invisible. The source material uses this term, blind money.
Blind money.
And it's an investigation into why, rational people go voluntarily mad.
And that's the part I want to challenge a bit, because we always look back at 1929 with this, sense of superiority. We think, all those people were naive.
They didn't have the data.
Right. They didn't have algorithms. But were they really that different from us?
Well, that's the question, isn't it? And these weren't stupid people. They were captains of industry. They were innovators. But the notes make this critical distinction that I think answers your question.
Okay.
There is a difference between seeing with your eyes and believing with your heart.
Okay, that sounds a little poetic for a financial discussion. What does that actually mean in practice?
It means you can look at a chart. I mean, your eyes can see the line going vertical. You can see the math doesn't add up. But if your heart, your desire, your fear of missing out, your need to be part of the winning team, if that believes the story.
The heart overrules the eyes.
The heart overrules the eyes. The intelligence doesn't disappear. It just gets hijacked.
So let's set the scene. Before the hijacking, we're in 1928, early 1929, the roaring 20s. What was the vibe on the street about money?
The source describes it as a mania that it dissolved class boundaries. It mentions specifically that financial knowledge stopped being a technical skill for bankers.
It just became gossip.
It became casual gossip. And we've all heard the shoeshine boy story giving stock tips.
Okay, I have to stop you there, though.
Yeah.
Because that story, it's in every single financial documentary, the whole Joe Kennedy thing. Is this actually documented in the notes, or is it just market folklore?
That's the crazy part. It is documented. The source references specific accounts of shoeshine boys, taxi drivers, chefs, even beggars, all having specific stock codes on their lips.
So the taxi driver isn't talking about the weather. He's talking about Radio Corporation of America.
Precisely. And the source points out something fascinating about high society in New York. Before this, dinner party conversations were about literature, wine, maybe the opera.
Cultured things.
Right. But in 1929, the conversation was monopolized. No matter where you started, it just circled back to the ticker tape.
It reminds me of how, crypto or real estate can just take over a dinner party today. It sucks the air out of the room.
It does. And this leads to what the source calls the religious metaphor. The market stopped being a mechanism for exchange, a place to buy and sell companies, and it became a religion.
A religion in terms of what? The fervor?
More than that, in terms of dogma. If you doubted the market, if you said, hey, these prices seem mathematically impossible, you weren't just a contrarian.
You are a heretic.
A heretic, yes. It was considered blasphemy. You were socially ostracized for suggesting the party might end. You were a buzzkill, someone who didn't believe in the new era of American prosperity.
Wow, that's dangerous. When skepticism becomes social suicide, you lose all the safety brakes.
Absolutely.
So let's get into the mechanics. Blind money. What is the technical definition here?
So the source references the economist Walter Bagehot. Blind money is capital coming from people who do not understand what they are doing.
But possess immense confidence.
Exactly. Confidence without competence. It's the fuel of the bubble. The source breaks it down into 3 stages. First, you have surplus. Money is just extra. It's sitting there.
Okay, stage 1. Harmless enough.
Then it finds a story. It finds a place to get stimulated, and that's when it becomes speculation.
Getting warmer.
And finally, when that blind money is torn apart by panic, it becomes a crisis. But the crucial thing the source notes is this disconnect between value and price.
Right, let's get into the numbers, because the notes say corporate profits were actually growing, weren't they?
They were. American industry was booming, profits were up, production was up. But here is the data point that matters. Stock prices had doubled, tripled.
Give me an example.
Okay, Radio Corporation of America, RCA. The tech darling of the era. The Google of 1929. The stock went from around $85 to over $500.
Whoa, that is a massive run.
But here's the kicker. RCA didn't pay a dividend. And its earnings, while good, hadn't gone up 500%. The price had completely detached from the reality of the business.
So the market moved from growth to expectation, and then finally
To rising just because it's rising.
That's the trance. It's circular logic.
It is. And the source breaks down the anatomy of this trance, this bubble, into 3 psychological pillars.
Let's walk through them. Pillar number 1.
Belief replaces facts. And this is where the Federal Reserve comes in.
The Fed. Always part of the story. What was their role here?
Easy credit. There was a lot of cheap money floating around, but the real danger wasn't just the liquidity, it was the psychological effect. It created this illusion that risk had vanished.
Because you can borrow money for cheap to buy stock, and the stock keeps going up, the risk feels like zero.
Exactly, which leads to pillar number 2, artificial consensus. This is just classic crowd psychology. We tend to confuse crowded with correct.
I can't be wrong if the whole city's doing the same thing.
That's the comforting lie. If your boss, your neighbor, the shoeshine boy are all buying RCA, staying out feels like the real risk. You feel like the idiot on the sidelines.
It's funny how that works. The most dangerous place to be is inside the bubble, but the safest feeling place is in the middle of the herd.
Right. And that brings us to the 3rd most volatile pillar, leverage and the get-rich-quick narrative.
Okay, let's pause on leverage. How did it work in 1929? Was the average person really using it?
Heavily. The rule was you only needed 10% down.
Wait, only 10%?
10%. So if you had $100, you could buy $1,000 worth of stock. The broker lent you the other $900.
Okay, let's just do the math on that. If the stock goes up 10%, my $1,000 becomes $1,100. I pay back the loan, and I've doubled my money.
Exactly. You turn 100 into 200 with just a small move, it's magic. But if the stock drops 10%,
My 1,000 is now worth 900. The broker takes his 900 back, and I have zero.
you are wiped out. Instant zero. That's the mechanical danger. But the source defines leverage in this much more profound way. It says leverage is borrowing excitement from the future.
To pay with exhaustion in the present. Wow. I really want to sit with that for a second. That hits different than just borrowing money.
It does, doesn't it? You're pulling future happiness into today. You feel rich now. But the cost is that you are living on a razor's edge. The stress, the anxiety, that is the exhaustion in the present.
You're emotionally maxed out, checking the ticker tape every 5 minutes because you literally can't afford to be wrong.
Precisely. And this brings us to the part of the deep dive I find most misunderstood. We all look back and say, why didn't the government stop it?
Yeah, this is the sledgehammer problem you mentioned.
Mm.
Because the notes are clear. They knew it was a bubble. The president knew. The Fed knew. So why just sit there?
Because the U.S. economy in the 1920s was a dual economy. This is the nuance people miss. Wall Street was booming.
Right.
But agriculture, the farmers, were already in a depression. They were struggling badly.
So you had rich cities, poor countryside.
Exactly. And the Fed only has one main tool to stop a bubble: interest rates. They can raise them to make borrowing expensive.
But if you raise rates...
You crush the farmers. They rely on loans for seeds, for equipment. So if you raise rates to stop the gamblers on Wall Street, you bankrupt the farmers in the Midwest who are already barely hanging on.
I see. So the tool isn't a scalpel.
It's a sledgehammer.
It's a sledgehammer. And that was the debate. Do we strike the bubble hard and hurt innocent people immediately? Or do we wait and hope it cools down on its own?
It's a brutal lose-lose choice. And while they were paralyzed, arguing in boardrooms, the individual investor just kept jumping in. The source says their mindset shifted from asking, is this right or wrong, to just asking,
Am I in time?
am I in time?
That is the frantic energy of the peak. It's like running to catch a train that's leaving the station without asking where the train is even going.
And in October 1929, that train went right off the rails.
So we have the history, we have the mechanics. But the mission here is to be useful to us now. The source pivots here from history to actionable wisdom. It lists 5 lessons.
And they apply to everything: stocks, crypto, a career hype cycle, anything.
Lesson number 1, Never use the crowd as a moral compass or a truth teller.
The source says the crowd is just a temperature gauge. It tells you how hot the situation is. If everyone's euphoric, the temperature is high, that's a fact, but it tells you nothing about value.
I like that.
Right.
High temperature doesn't mean buy. It just means fever.
Exactly. Lesson number 2. When everyone is certain, you should be suspicious.
This goes back to that new era thinking.
Right. In 1929, a famous economist, Irving Fisher, said stocks had reached a permanently high plateau. He was certain. But in a complex system, certainty is impossible. So if collective confidence is at 100%, that's actually a flashing red alarm bell.
It means there's no one left to buy. Okay, lesson 3. Understand the transfer of risk.
This is the cynical one. When you start seeing get rich quick stories everywhere, it usually means the smart money, the insiders, are quietly selling.
They're getting out.
They're handing the bag to the new arrivals. Risk is being transferred from the professionals to the amateurs. If you're hearing about easy money at a BBQ, you are the liquidity for someone else's exit.
Ouch. But fair. Lesson 4 we touched on, but let's restate it. The definition of leverage.
Borrowing excitement from the future to pay with exhaustion in the present. Don't just calculate the financial interest rate, calculate the emotional interest rate. Can you sleep at night?
And finally, lesson number 5.
Yeah.
The true measure of wisdom.
It isn't predicting the absolute top. Nobody can do that consistently. The true measure of wisdom is having the discipline to leave the fever early.
Leaving the party while the music is still playing.
It is so hard to do. You will look foolish for a while. People will say, look how much money you're missing out on. But that discipline is the only thing that saves you when the music stops.
Now, we spent all this time on financial history. But toward the end of these notes, the source takes this turn I didn't expect. It asks, are we talking about securities? Or are we talking about life?
This is the life bubble concept. And I think this is where the deep dive really lands for me. The mechanics of a financial bubble belief, herd mentality, collapse, they apply to our personal lives too.
Blind money is just a symptom of blind validation.
Exactly. I mean, think about the busyness bubble.
Oh, the I'm grinding 80 hours a week, badge of honor. Yeah.
Right. We throw ourselves into a career path, not because we've calculated its value for us, but because the market, our friends, society, says this is what success looks like.
We confuse crowded with correct again. Everyone else is trying to become a VP by 30, so I have to do it too.
And just like in the stock market, we leverage ourselves. We borrow excitement from the future. I'll be happy when I get that promotion, and pay with exhaustion in the present, burnout.
And the crash happens when you wake up one day and realize you bought a life path that was completely overvalued.
That's the collapse, the midlife crisis, the burnout. It follows the exact same pattern as 1929.
So the whirlwind isn't just on Wall Street. It's internal.
The source argues the strongest whirlwind is in the mind. It's that pressure to conform, to speed up, to not get left behind.
So how do we break it? How do we avoid our own personal crash?
The solution is just stepping back. It's about creating distance between you and the crowd. Looking at the ticker tape of your own life and asking, is this actually valuable to me, or is the price just high because everyone else wants it?
Reclaiming your own compass.
Yes. The text concludes that the market of 1929 was just a mirror. It showed us our own greed, our own fear, and blind money was the test. The only true freedom is awakening.
Awakening from the trance. Seeing with your eyes, not just believing with the FOMO in your heart.
Precisely.
This has been a heavy one, but really necessary. It's amazing how a century-old crisis can feel so personal today.
Human nature doesn't change. The ticker symbols change. It was RCA then. It's AI stocks or housing now. But the fear of being left behind, that's eternal.
So we want to leave you with the final provocative question posed by the source material. It's a challenge, an audit for yourself.
In your own life right now, what is the whirlwind you are throwing yourself into just because you are afraid of being left behind?
Take a moment with that. Are you buying into a career, a relationship, a lifestyle, just because the crowd says it's going up?
And remember, the crowd is just a thermometer. You have to be the compass.
If this episode made you stop and think, if it made you spot a little bit of that madness in your own circle, share this deep dive with a friend who might be running too fast. Maybe they need to hear that it's okay to step out of the whirlwind.
Sometimes missing the party is the best investment you can make.
Thanks for listening. We'll see you on the next deep dive.
Stay grounded.